Getty EBSREUTERSEU News. Swedish minister predicts tough time for EU amid populist election. Succession Fritzen, Swedish minister for migration, revealed her worries for EU policymaking as a number of countries challenge the Bulgarian EU Council presidency in its bid to reform the Dublin regulation. At least a dozen countries are ready to reject reforms to the regulation, which decides what EU state is responsible for processing an asylum seeker. Under the current process, refugees must register in the country they first arrive, after plans were unveiled to domestic ministers at a meeting in Luxembourg on Monday. The potential reform marks the end of Sofia's 6 months of holding the rotating EU presidency, so remains high up on priorities. Bulgaria is calling for alleviating the burden from the frontline states like Italy and curbing secondary movements of asylum seekers who land in one EU country and travel to another. It's a harder political climate in Europe. Helena Fritzen. Sofia is proposing the compulsory relocation of asylum seekers, but only as a last resort. Under the proposal, frontline states face increased responsibility to register arrivals. Italy's new populist government coalition of the Five Star Movement and Lega are some of the harshest critics, with the latter running a tough anti-immigration campaign. Lega leader Matteo Salvini, the last weekend, declared, Italy and Sicily cannot be Europe's refugee camp, but has climbed down on much of his hardline, anti-immigration rhetoric from the election campaign prior to the March vote. There are also doubts from Slovenia, which has just seen an anti-immigration party won some 25% of the vote in the recent general election and look poised to form a government. They join Austria, Poland and Hungary, who all boast tough-talking, right-wing government unafraid to challenge the Brussels bubble. On the fringes of the second day of talks between politicians from the EU 28, Ms. Fritzen said the bloc may have to accept compromise on policies such as the Dublin regulation as the number of opponents grow. She said, the Bulgarian presidency have had a very high ambition, and I am very positive Europe needs a compromise, but we have right-wing elections in Europe, so there is also a problem with a compromise today. The Swede named the Italians and Slovenians as EU partners who could create potential a flashpoint in future discussions on migration and other contentious subjects. She added, we also have Slovenia. We also have a harder discussion now. We are also saying today we can try with a compromise. I will today underline solidarity, responsibility and the need for a compromise and a decision. When asked if there are more doubts than ever across the EU, Ms. Fritzen concluded, it's a harder political climate in Europe. Hungary, Poland, Slovakia and the Czech Republic have either refused or resisted taking in refugees since the European Commission pushed through temporary quotas at the height of the migrant crisis in 2015, in the hope of easing the burden on Italy and Greece.